Hey, CPO here, and we're at another Heli Hangout. This is Friday, January 16th, and we're at Hangout number 38. So just a couple dudes hanging out, talking about helicopters and stuff. So feel free to join us if you like. You can go to my Google Plus page and find the Hangout there, or just watch us online, YouTube live stream, or as you might have found, you can catch us in the audio version via podcast, which I think people have liked, being able to just do the podcast thing. So anyway, we got Dana here. It's been a while since he's been on with this, and Casper's here as usual. I know Adrian sent me a note, said he's not going to make it this time around, and I think I heard. Did I hear Casper? Did Ed come on, Rifted, and say he wasn't going to be able to make it?
Yeah, you see the note up in the corner in the group chat.
Okay. Nice. And I need. All right. Cool. All right. So anyway, let's figure out what's going on with you guys, and we'll just go from there. So Dana, it's been a while since we've had you on. What have you been up to these days?
Same old, just working and trying to figure out what's next for me in the hobby. I've been really just trying to progress with flying and kind of I'm a big fan of the RC Heli Nation guys and listen to the podcast all the time, and it kind of kills me when I listen to them. They got I got 500 flights in or 400 flights in for the season, and I think I look back. I last year I wound up trying to think of the name of the app. I got there's an app you can get for on your phone, so you can keep track of all your flights and your batteries and all that stuff, right? And yeah, Tech Dad RC Flight Log. Sure, you've heard of it. I don't know. I think I got like 70 some flights in for the for last year. So yeah, it's so hopefully this year I can try to make a more concerted effort at flying. So and progressing. I haven't kind of blew my 2015 budget on a new radio, and that's going to be that's kind of going to be my the direction I want to grow with anyway. So so I picked a good time, I think, to go with to change radios anyway over the winter here. But I'll be kind of excited to start using that once the weather starts to cooperate, because the weather just hasn't really been that great.
I hear you there.
So actually, I got out. I remade my 600 class electric, the Fusion 50, and on the new transmitter on the Jeti. So first time I've actually ever set up a helicopter and actually made a mistake with my rudder control. My servo channel is backward. So I took it outside and I go to hover it, and I gave it a little bit of input on the tail, and it's like, whoa.
The good news is it usually doesn't take you very long to figure that one out.
No. Yeah, it was just like, all right, everything's backwards. All right, bring it down, land it. Okay, we're all right. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So how are you liking the Jeti?
I like it. I'm still kind of on the fence. I'll tell you what, I've got a 14 SG. And I really do like the Futaba stuff. The couple things I don't like about Futaba is, like, I really wanted to get into telemetry. And Futaba's telemetry pricing is, like, it's just stupid expensive. Like, all their accessories and sensors, and nobody else makes anything for it. I don't know if FR Sky has anything that's compatible with, the fast test protocol, but anyway, I started looking around, shopping around, and I decided that that Jeti was the direction I wanted to go. Back before I got my 14 SG, I really kind of fell in love with the DS16 I went to the one of the hobby shows last April. I think it's the Toledo. I think they call it Weak Signals Toledo show. So I went to that show and checked it out and really liked it. Liked the ergonomics. I don't understand why every radio out there has the LCD screen in the bottom and why it's not at the top. You know, I think there's a couple other radios out there in the world that have the LCD up on the top of the radio, which to me just makes more sense. You know, I found myself with the 14SG, you know, I'll have a neck strap on and you're sitting there doing one of these where, you know, here's my radio, you know, I don't know if you could see this, but I wind up doing this, turning it and kind of trying to look at my timer at the same time to see how much time I left, you know, and even though the 14SG has audio, you know, you have to use headphones or something, right? There's no speaker. And that was another thing that really, it was kind of a setback on it that I just didn't like. For the life of me, I can't figure out why Futaba didn't put a speaker on the radio, you know. They probably could have charged another $100 and added an audio amp board and a little speaker and still be making out. But no, I just the Jeti. It's I guess the best way to put it, it's just it's a product that really lets me get my nerd on. So
sure, yeah.
You know, that's the part I do enjoy about the hobby is the technical side of things and I guess the fiddle farting around. So, but yeah, I mean, so far I like it. You know, there's a couple things I don't like about it, but you'll have that, you know.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, nothing is perfect.
Right. So, you know, but I think in time here, once I get more of my helicopters switched over and start using it, because I really haven't really had a chance to even use the thing yet. So, you know, and I would use it for simming, but they don't have a PPM out. You know, you have to buy. You either have to pull one of the switches off the transmitter, and they have a, you know, like the mono jack that goes in the place of the switch, and you can add.
Oh, okay.
You can add PPM because there's actually a PPM socket on the internal circuit board, but it's something you have to add after the fact. So it's kind of an afterthought, but I decided I think what I'm going to do is just take a receiver and use a receiver with a and make like I guess an adapter to go from the receiver to the real flight stereo adapter or whatever, because just, you know, I got to imagine I can go to Radio Shack and buy a mono connector and just wire that right to a receiver, I would think.
Right. Yeah, but see, I did that with my what did I do that with? Oh, I did that for my at the time it was my DX6i and Phoenix, which I don't fly Phoenix anymore, and I don't fly DX6i, so this is kind of OBE. But the challenge is you got to get a receiver that can output PPM.
Correct.
So I don't know if the protocol that Jeti uses, do they have a good selection of receivers like that?
Yeah, actually they do. That's one of the nice things that I do like about it. Their receivers are, like right now, their latest firmware update. You can reflash the firmware, and all of their receivers are programmable. So you can actually program them and set them up for standard servo outputs out of the channels. You could also set it up for single channel PPM, and they support XBus protocol, which I'm not sure what the XBus protocol is. I think that's used with some of Jeti's own. They have these they're like, I forget what they're called. They're like a hub type box that you can plug multiple receivers into. Say you got like a giant scale airplane or something, you can you can have more than one receiver on an aircraft. And what they do with their stuff, you know, I'm just kind of, this is all new to me, but from what I've been reading, the transmitter has dual transmitters. Okay, so this thing has a total of 4 antennas. Okay, I don't know if it's 2 for transmit and 2 for receive, but or they both do the same thing. It's just different orientations. But they have different protocols for how you transmit. And then the receivers, like I said, you can program the receiver. And the way I'm using it is I program mine for what is called UDI, and I think that stands for Universal Digital Interface or something. So it's a pure digital transmission where I don't believe PPM is digital. I think PPM is an analog signal. Maybe somebody here can correct me on that, but the UDI is pure digital, just like S-Bus is. Okay, and S-Bus is its own digital protocol for Futaba, but essentially it gives you the same thing, because I'm used to the single wire interface that I get with Futaba, and I was able to convert everything over to, well, the plan is to convert everything over to UDI using the existing, the same Flybarless controllers I have. So I think the only Flybarless controller I have that I won't be able to use UDI on is going to be the Robird. So, because I do have a Robird.
Nice.
So
no new heli purchases then, right?
You know what? I've got the Nitro, and I really do enjoy flying the Nitro. I've got the Fusion, and quite honestly, I didn't really fly the Fusion all that much last year. And I've got a Protos 500 I fly a little bit, and then I got a 450 that I actually just started flying in the fall, just a T-Rex 450 version 2 or something, similar to your Taro that you have.
Right.
And so, I've been able to, you can buy, everything I have is obsolete, right? And one thing I've learned about this hobby is that everybody has to have the latest and greatest thing, At least to me it seems that way. When you get on Heli Freak, you see people just dumping helicopter airframes for $100 or $200, and so actually over, I don't know, the last 6 months I've picked up 2 the Velocity 90 N2 airframes, and then I've got, since I got started with the Fusion, 2 years ago, I've also picked up a spare airframe, and so when I look at everything I have that, and how worthless it really is at this point, it's like, what, I'm not switching. I'm gonna fly the crap out of this stuff until I can't fix it and can't fly it anymore. Then I'll worry about another heli.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So
that's kind of my issue too.
Right. It just doesn't end. It just, there's always something new that comes out, something better, and I really thought I was going to buy an E700 at the end of the year, and I just decided, you know what? Nah, I'm just going to hold off. Because then I got to buy packs, and I've got a motor and ESC ready for a 700 class, but I just figured, you know what? What's the rush? So. Yeah.
But it's that we used to in guitars and guns, we used to call it GAS, right? Guitar acquisition syndrome or gun acquisition syndrome. I guess this is a HAS or a RAS, RC acquisition syndrome, but. There's kind of something about the hobby that a large majority of it is just that process of buying and selling and building and buying and selling and building, and somewhere in there we actually play with them. But I seriously think a big part of the hobby is the just moving through the different new products and checking everything out.
Yeah.
And the most expensive part for me is listening to other podcasts or, like you said, surfing Heli Freak. And it's like, oh, man, I didn't want the Goblin 360 until now everybody's talking about it, and I can't get away from it, or the 380 or whatever the heck it is this time. It's like, so.
Yep.
So, yeah, I feel for you there. And I look at the helis hanging on my own little wall area, and I've got from a micro up to a 700, and I should be just happy, right? And I fly them very little actually because I just don't have time.
Right.
All of them but one is flight ready. The one that's not is my 500, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. It's not in crash state. It just needs to be set up. I've rebuilt it and then took it out to IRCHA, and we demoed it with Andy with CPO Heli tools, and used it as a demo helicopter for setup. But I've never actually set up the Flybarless controller and all that stuff on it, and it's just been hanging on the wall because I started building the 700. But at any rate, I've got all these perfectly fine helis that I don't even fly enough as it is. Yet I find myself still surfing for, what's this cool heli and what's that cool heli, and I think it's a sickness. But like I said, I think that's as much as a hobby is anything else. So I commend you for focusing now on, you've got the radio, which no insignificant purchase all by itself. But yeah, just saying, hey, let me just play with this for a while, and that's probably a good idea. So well, that's cool, man. It's good having you back on.
Yeah, no, nice to finally be able to make it back. So.
Hey,
cool.
Dan, I jumped in here a little bit late. What radio did you pick up?
I picked up a
DX6i.
Yeah, DX6i. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Used.
yeah, used.
I got a chance to play with one of those about 2-3 weeks ago. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I like I said, I think the first time I handled the radio was last April at Weak Signals in Toledo, and yeah, I just it's just very substantial. When you first grab hold of the radio, and it feels like something, and
right.
And then playing around with it and all the features and options. I mean, it offers a lot. I wouldn't say, I think there's only one other radio that offers probably as much as this thing has, and that would probably be the Taranis. As far as user customizable settings, I guess would be
Right.
the Taranis. But I think one of the things difference between the two there is just what's your fancy, it's like. So, not that there's anything wrong with the Taranis. I probably would have been happy with one of those as well. So, but this was just one of those things that I came across and kind of fell in love with it. And it's like, you know what? It's like avionics, right? You're not going to go out and buy the cheapest, avionics to go fly yourself around, So, or if you have a boat or whatever, and that's the way I look at it. I wanted something that's, that has a lot of options down the road, and Jeti themselves, they're growing. I think they're growing exponentially now, and especially now with that new DS14 they came out with.
Right.
They've reduced the price, and their receiver prices. I mean, their receivers they're very inexpensive. Telemetry accessories, everything. That was probably another reason why. I said, you know what, the entry price is going to be high. I didn't have to buy the DS16. I could have bought the DS14, but I just looked at it as, what, at least at this point, there's nothing else I'm going to want until Jeti decides to come out with the next best thing. But the radio's got all the features and options in it. So, but receivers. I mean. Futaba's R7008 SB receiver. That's the fast test receiver. That thing's a $140 receiver, and I can buy the same thing in a Jeti receiver for $79. So,
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've been in the same boat. I just got this, like you guys were talking about. You can't go looking around at anything without getting tempted by something new popping
Right.
up on the horizon. So I've been doing the same thing with transmitters lately. I have a DX8 right now, which it does everything I can ask for. There's nothing that it does not do that I need to do. Yet I'm out looking at transmitters. So
Right.
yeah. But I just the other day I came to the same realization. Why am I going to go drop $500+ bill on something that's not going to get me really at this point anything that I don't already have. So
Right.
Yeah, that's the other key, right? Is spending your money on things that give you new benefit.
right,
To some regard, if you've got a decent radio and you've already got receivers on your toys, then we're just nitpicking on value out of that transaction. But getting a pair, spending that money on a pair of goggles, let's say FPV goggles, is something new. Then that's different. But it is hard though. It's really hard. And every time I look at the Jetis, I kind of drool a little bit. So the switches on the front, while we're talking about the DS16, are they fairly easy to get to? Because it seems like most of the transmitters tend to have all the switches on the top and then they roll backwards. This one's like they're in the front and then they roll up to the top. Are they fairly comfortable to switch?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I haven't had a ton of time with this thing, but yeah, as far as in my hands right now, I mean, I'm a thumber, so my throttle hold switch is my top left. I've got a bailout switch on my spring-loaded trainer switch, whatever, on the top right. So I mean, overall, I don't know if you guys can see. I mean, you can kind of see my hands here, and these. This would be my. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Throttle hold. I mean, switches here on the front. I mean, I can get to these. It's kind of hard contorting here on the, in front of the camera, but I mean, I haven't really seen, ergonomically, this thing in my hands, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. And I think a lot of guys, I have heard some complaints with some people about probably one of the drawbacks if you're a winter flyer, it's the case. The case is aluminum. It's cold. It's cold. I won't deny that. It definitely takes away from the comfort, but I'm not a huge winter flyer. Maybe down the road. But I think the other thing was trims. Some guys have mentioned trim adjustments on, or because the trim buttons they're right down here. Okay, there's two pads here. Okay,
They're not in alignment with the sticks like they would normally be, right?
Correct. Like most transmitters, they're orientated close to the sticks, and I have got absolutely no complaint because I don't use trims. Okay,
right.
The most heli guys aren't going to use them. Maybe when I get into planes, but I think, like I said, that just goes in. Yeah, there's probably things that some folks aren't going to like about it. I think most of the features that this radio brings to me, outweighs the dislikes. But I mean, you bring up the comment of, like reward or return on, what's best for you in the hobby, and that's where I think for me, I like the idea of actually getting into the transmitter that I actually really wanted to see myself with and progress with and stick with for a long time. The 14SG, I think quite honestly, I could probably return the Jeti and still be happy because that'd be a whole lot of money back in my pocketbook, right? And still be content with the 14SG. I'm still sold on Futaba products. I think they make great products. Has nothing to do with them, but again, the big thing I was looking for was really a radio that I could hear, the telemetry, that I could actually customize the telemetry. I mean, I can tell this thing to, it can yell at me and expletives if I want. There's no there's no limits to this thing as far as what you can do. So at least not that I found yet. Usually, if you think you found a limitation, you start looking online and chatting with people, and then you find out there's a whole other way to do it, And
the limitation is you, right?
exactly, and the program. Yeah, I mean, you get used to programming Futaba, and a lot of people say Futaba radios are hard to program, and I didn't think Futaba was hard to program. But I think as like anything, the more flexibility you bring into a platform, the harder it's going to be to do basic programming.
Yeah, well, yeah. The more flexible it is, the more the learning curve goes up, just because you've got to learn how to do all that.
Correct.
So the interesting thing about the Jeti, by the way, since we're turning this into a Jeti segment, I did not realize until I had heard the guys actually on RC Today show. Chris Boltinghouse was talking about. I think it was Chris.
Yeah.
Now I don't even know. It was Chris talking about the Jeti, and he mentioned on there the rotating gimbals, and I did not even realize that the Jeti could rotate the gimbals. And I was wondering, have you tried that? Is that something that interests you or not?
It wasn't anything that really interests me too much because I don't think I've actually even progressed to the point of realizing mechanically, the problems I have when I'm actually using a transmitter, right? I'm just so used to using what I've got. I'm not this, I'm not Nick Maxwell or anybody that's got any real skill, So it was an interesting point for me to know that you could make that adjustment. It wasn't a huge selling feature for me. I think the big thing for me was, I think that their telemetry is done right compared to anybody else's telemetry that I've been across and that I've seen. And then obviously the ergonomics of the radio, the fact that the LCD is above your hand so you can see it,
Yeah. I think radios were designed to be programmed and then used, but not. I don't think people really thought the display was going to be part of the use. It seems like.
Correct. And I think for a lot of people, depending on what you do, do you really need it? No. I mean, most guys that go out and you look at like I said, you look at the pro pilots and stuff. A lot of these guys probably don't look at their displays. They just go out and they do their stick banging, and not that I'm saying they're not graceful stick bangers. I'm just saying they go out and do their thing. They can probably do it with their eyes closed because they're so good at it. And, but for me, I'm your average hobbyist, and I want something that I want that next level. That's going to offer me some of the convenient features, and again, give me that getting my nerd on avenue. So I can kind of tinker and play with it and program. So
that's one of the things that got me started looking at new radios. I have a DX8, has telemetry, but it doesn't have voice prompt, so I have to be looking at my telemetry, and especially when I'm flying my heli, I don't want to be looking at my telemetry. I want to be looking at my heli.
Right.
So I started looking at voice prompts, and a lot of places are there's a handful of radios now. They're slowly starting to bring that in, including the DX9. But then I started looking at how companies are doing telemetry, and as big as Futaba and Spectrum are, you would think they would be more or less, at least maybe not on the bleeding edge, but at least out there on the leading edge of what's going on with this stuff, and they're not. They're so far behind compared to companies like Jeti, and one of the newer radios that I was really intrigued with, very similar to Jeti in many ways, is the new Gropners, the MZ24 specifically. How their receivers are very inexpensive, and they have full telemetry built right into the receiver. You don't.
Right.
With Spectrum, I have to buy a receiver, then I have to buy a telemetry module. Just recently, Spectrum came out with receivers that do have very limited telemetry built in them. I just bought a Sport Cub S that has a new AR 363 receiver in it, I believe, and it's a stabilized receiver with telemetry, but the telemetry is very minimal. Basically, it tells me how my radio signal's doing if I'm dropping packets, and it tells me my receiver voltage, which really doesn't mean anything. But if I went with Gropner or Jeti and bought a receiver, their receivers, first of all, are even less than most of the Spectrum stuff, and it comes with a full line of telemetry. At least the basic stuff. I can look at my receiver voltage. I can look at my pack voltage. And if I want to add stuff like Vario and all kinds of other stuff, that's just sensors that are plug and play into the receiver. I don't have to, like with Spectrum, go out and buy other modules to plug into the receiver, and all of a sudden I've got this wiring mess to deal with. And so I'm just really surprised that there are companies like Futaba and Spectrum that are just so far behind where I think this hobby logically should be going. And apparently companies like Jeti and Gropner, obviously the both of them have been doing it for a long time this way.
Right.
So it's been very interesting.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, okay, cool. I mean, I can't deny the Jeti's a cool transmitter, and I think you're right, Dana. It's probably one of those that eventually people get just because they know that's the one they really wanted the entire time, and you finally just bite the bullet, throw down the cash, and make it happen, and then with the assumption that you're done now. You've got the holy grail transmitter.
Right.
Although, $1,500 is tough, and $1,700, but the DS14 at $795, that's all. I mean, it's still a freaking lot of money, but it's not that far out of reach from some of the other higher end transmitters. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 14SG. The 14SG right now, the map price on it's $599. So, when you look at the 14SG and the DS14 side by side, I mean, for me, it's an easy, I can see the difference and spend the money, and it was, at the time when I bought my DS16, which was just before New Year's, they didn't have, the DS14 was still $895, so I started looking at some of the options that I wanted to have on the DS14, and I said, okay, well now I'm pushing myself up with the add-ons into the $1,200 mark. So at that point, I just said, look, I might as well just buy, buy the radio I want, because I looked at, it's a lot of money, but here's the deal. I think you know this, and a lot of the other guys on here know this, and go buy a Synergy E7 SE today, or a Goblin 700 or 770 competition, and by the time you put all the electronics in it, the batteries and everything, you've got $3,000 wrapped up. And at least for me, that was the way I kind of looked at things this year, and I said, you know what, I've got, for as much flying as I get in, I've got more than enough helicopters to keep me flying, and more than enough parts to crash a few times this year anyway. And actually, I think I could probably get six rekits in, and then I'll have to be shopping for new helis. So I got enough used airframes and parts laying around, so I'll be good. And that's just that's the way I'm doing it.
Nice, cool. All right, let's see how everybody else is doing. Casper, what have you been up to lately?
Well, as far as transmitters, I only have my DX7, and there's no audio on it other than a beeper at 10 seconds with the timer. So that's why I put a DX9 in the wings here that I'm going to move to eventually. That'll give me the audio feedback that I need, so I won't have to look down at the screen, which gets to be awkward. I have to bring the transmitter up closer to eye level and then quickly glance to see the countdown time until finally it gets in the last 10 seconds, and it gives me a slight beep countdown to 0. So that's good. As far as flying, not too much lately. A couple indoors things. I was working on getting my 450 back up. Took it outside today. I thought it was ready. Spun it up. Barely could get it into a hover. It seems that one of the aileron servos isn't giving me as much movement on one side as the other, so I'll have to bring it back to the drawing board, take a look at it, see if the transmitter ranges are okay, or if I need to look at that servo a little bit to see how it's working. Doing a lot of soldering today on a Quad 250. Boy, there's a lot of pins on there, and they sure are small. They take a long time. Because I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to finally configure this, I decided to put bullets on the ESC until sometime I finally decide what I want to do. So there was 12 more solders I had to do today as well. So I'm certainly getting my practice in soldering, that's for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. Other than that, awaiting some parts. I've got my Park Zone Super Cub just like Dave. I'm waiting for a 30 amp ESC to come in before I start playing with it and getting it set up. If you look on the RC groups, boy, there's a lot of pages to go through to read up on all that stuff. So I usually open a Word document, and as I'm paging through these, slide notes over into my Word document of things I want to do or think about. And there's probably 300 or 400 pages of that particular form that you get to go through. So I've been going through that one and been going through the one for the Penguin as well. So that's taken a lot of time. And that's about it.
Yeah, the Cub section on the forum is up to 520 pages. I just finished going through them all yesterday.
I'm just at 281 and going up.
Isn't that fun? I like going back through those old threads and just start at the beginning and working my way through.
Yeah, taking notes as you go through.
Yeah.
Sure, learn a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Anything else, Casper?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
Okay.
Following some of the podcasts, a couple that I like are Flight Test. That's a pretty good site. And then in New Zealand, the RC Modelers Review. I don't know if you watched that one at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I haven't watched him in a while, just because I haven't had time to keep up with my YouTube feed. But yeah, he has some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Dave, what have you been up to?
Not much. Weather has not been very friendly for flying. It's been heavy, very heavy, thick, wet fog here every day. And occasionally when the sun breaks through, it just kicks the wind up. So, and on those rare times like this afternoon when it actually cleared up and there was no wind, I was busy doing something else. So I really haven't had time to fly. Finished building my Sport Cub S today and got it all trimmed out, so it's ready to maiden. I ordered a power meter, which came in earlier this week, and I've been playing with that. It's been interesting because I wanted to see testing different props and seeing what they're doing to my power systems on my planes. So it's been kind of interesting to measure that kind of stuff. See, even this, the smallest changes in props, the difference in thrust that it makes, what it does to my batteries, that kind of stuff. So that's it's kind of interesting. I think next I'm going to build a scale to actually measure the thrust I'm getting. But like I compared a 10.5 or a 10.5 EPROP and a 10.5 slow fly, and I was surprised how much difference the slow fly prop makes compared to an EPROP, because I look at them, there really isn't that much difference as far as the chord of the prop. They look very, very similar, but it made a substantial difference on the current that was drawn. My motor went from like 200 and pulling 240 watts up to 315 watts, just swapping to a slow fly prop, and just using my hand, but measuring the actual thrust, there was significant difference. Although the RPM on that motor is a little bit high to be running a slow fly, I can hear at times the prop starting to flutter a little bit. So I wouldn't run that prop on that plane, but it's just interesting to see this very slight changes and what it does to your power system.
So speaking of RC model reviews, Dave, do you check that out? His channel?
I don't think so.
And the reason I bring that up is he's had, and the very few videos I've seen of his in recent, I don't know, weeks have been, one of them caught my eye, but he's done a few videos on prop testing, and he did a video I watched testing 5-inch props, tested the efficiency and the overall amp draw and the how much wattage. But anyway, so that interesting point number one is the work he already did in comparing different props, which was actually quite surprising to me for my mini quad. I was kind of paying attention to those prop tests because he did 5x3s and then 5x4s and then like a 5x4 bullnose, and was comparing the differences. But the other thing that caught my eye is the prop testing station he's using, which I think was a Hobby King. Yeah, it's a Turnigy. So you just might check that out if you're playing around with prop testing and thrust testing, because Hobby King, and I don't know what setup it is, but the one he's using is this, it's called a Turnigy thrust measuring stand, and it connects, it looks like the battery balancer watt meter sort of thing is separate, but the thrust measuring stand just, I guess, just basic thrust measurements. But I didn't know if you'd seen that. If not, you might want to check it out.
Yeah, I actually saw that. I think it's relatively new, as far as I could tell, because I think I got that in an email maybe a month ago from Hobby King about that thrust stand. So.
Okay.
So other than that, I really haven't been either I haven't had the time or just some of it I'm waiting. I don't know if you guys. How many of you guys are actually using Icon or Brain? But they have a new firmware coming out, and first it was it's going to be out by the end of November. Well, maybe, but for sure.
Let's go back. First, it was going to be out before the end of IRCHA.
Right, exactly. So the last thing I heard was that it's done. They're just trying to tweak the UI at this point, and hoping we'll see it in the next couple of weeks. I need to reset up my 550, and I'm kind of holding off because I don't want to have to redo the governor setup and everything. Even though they said, well, you should be able to just set it up and then load the upgrade, and you shouldn't have to reset up your heli. But I've been through that before, so I'm kind of sitting on it. But I'm getting tired of sitting on it. So what'll happen is I'll finally just say, okay, I'll just set it up and I'll go fly, and then like a day later, the new firmware will come out and I'll have to redo everything.
Right. So I mentioned this before you came on, but of all the helis I have hanging on the wall, the 500 is the only one not flight ready, and it's because it hasn't been set up yet, and that one has my icon on it. And I wasn't holding out for the new firmware, but now I might be. So do you have any idea what all of the new updates are going to include over the original?
I don't. They've really been quiet about it. I know the biggest thing on it is the governor. They've changed a lot as far as the governor algorithm, which surprised me because that's actually one of the things I really like about it is how it flies with a governor. One of the things that it's lacking though that's not in there is the auto rotation stuff in there. So if you're going to use auto rotation, you got to set it up in conjunction with Castle's auto rotation routines or something, and I believe that's what's coming, is they're going to have all their own auto rotation routines in the Flybarless unit, so you can not have to fall back on that part of Castle, which made the configuration a little more complicated.
They had auto rotation bailout in the last firmware update.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did. The only thing I can tell you is that there was a bug in it, though.
Okay.
Because I had set up my Castle with, I think they call it not multi-rotor mode. It's still a helicopter mode, but I think it's
that's right.
external governor or something like that. And so you basically don't have soft start or anything enabled in the speed controller. So I actually had twice last year with my Fusion, I had basically two like hot starts. I mean, completely, honestly, not hot starts. I mean, I knew it was going to start, but it literally went from when I flipped the throttle hold out to like 100% throttle with no soft start at all. So what that did was basically, bent the feathering shaft, and tore up the root of my blades. Yeah, so now, currently, because there is no firmware update since then, I went and did the other method, which is using Castle's soft start, and you can still use the icon bailout if you wish. I don't think I'm using Icon's bailout on my current configuration. I'm just using all Castle. So as long as my throttle, the throttle channel, when you're in throttle hold, doesn't, I think, go below either 5 or 10%, or it's somewhere in between there. As long as you're in that window, the Icon will not reset the the soft start timer or whatever.
Okay.
So, in the Castle, it's okay with that because you're, the 5 to 10% range you're operating within the auto bailout settings of that are built in the Castle. So.
Yeah, I remember reading too. A lot of guys were complaining about twitchy tails on the Icon, and
Right.
they made some changes to the algorithms to smooth that out. So supposedly the tail's supposed to be a little bit better, assuming we see new firmware.
Yeah, I believe that's what they had fixed.
Cool. Well, I was planning on actually. So I don't know if I mentioned this on the last Hangout, but I got the Spirit Flybarless controller from the Czech Republic, and I need to still install that on a helicopter and set it up and try it, check it out, do a video on it. I was thinking about putting it on the 500, so that's probably what I'll do with that heli since it's ready to go. Matter of fact, this is how sad I am. Before IRCHA, so that was what, August, right in the awesomest part of the summer. I rebuilt that 500, put a brand new RJX Flybarless head, put brand new high-tech servos on it. Totally just like everything's brand new. Never have set it up. and what are we, like 6, 7, 8 months later? So it's just because I haven't had time to. I ended up building that 700. But anyway, long story short, I was thinking about pulling the icon off, putting on the Spirit FBL, so that I can go ahead and get it set up and check out that new Flybarless controller. But the new firmware makes me. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with the icon. So now I'm stuck on trying to decide how I want to handle that. Maybe I'll throw the icon on the 550, see how that works out. But
do you still have the GT2 on the 550?
Yeah, I have the. That's what I'm running on it right now. Is the GT 5.2. And it's been fine. The way I fly, I probably notice less of the quirks that a lot of people will notice in just about anything. But it hasn't given me any grief, so I haven't had any desire to get rid of it. Although I will say, when I first set it up, it was a little bit rough with the tail, but that's all worked out now. So, and then there's the 450, and it's got the Rowbird on there. And again, I've got no complaints with the Rowbird, but the one thing the Rowbird doesn't have that the Icon and the Spirit have and that's a bailout feature. So, of course, the GT 5.2 doesn't have a bailout either. So it's like no. Now that I'm thinking about it, nor does my CGY 750 that's on the 700.
Right.
the bigger helis don't have the bailouts, so maybe I should look at that.
You don't need them.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm too scared to fly them anyway. To really fly them, I'm not afraid to hover them, but maybe I'm afraid to fly them.
I'm afraid to crash them.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially now, my Thunder Tiger, support is getting changed up. I don't even know where to go now for parts. I know that there's somebody new that's picked up the support for them, but I haven't looked in too hard to figure out who that was.
So what was that? Habico? Was Habico the chief importer?
Habico had them, yeah, okay. And then apparently, for some reason, Hobbyco, aka Tower Hobbies, they severed ties with Thunder Tiger, and so Thunder Tiger is now. I wish I remember who their new U.S. distributor is. They partner with somebody, so somebody will be stocking their parts. And they're, A-Main and those other guys have parts. I just don't know to what degree, but. Anyway, so yeah, it's definitely the parts crash kit and parts availability for the Thunder Tiger is not gone. It's just not quite as solid as it used to be until they get things sorted out. But quite frankly, there's been two problems. I haven't had time to fly, and the weather has been ridiculous. So I'm almost about ready to just count January and February out altogether around here. The desire to go to the field in this weather just isn't happening. I've got a plane that I've built, that pattern plane. I still haven't named it yet because it's ridiculous. I don't want to go to the field. And the one nice day we might get, every 3 weeks, I'm not able to make it anyway because there's probably something else that needs to happen during that nice day. But I think I'm gonna have to plan something because I'm getting ready to have another plane to maiden that I don't know if you saw. I'm building a little Japanese Zero. I say build. It literally is like 45 minutes to put it together. It's ready to fly. But really cool little plane. My first retract plane, so I'm kind of excited about that. I just hope I can remember to put the landing gear back down when I land because that's going to be new.
Yeah.
Belly land it. So.
Just remember there's those that have and those that will.
Yep. Yeah, thanks. But hey, you saw my response to your post on Facebook, right, Casper? That cowling is all open and vented. So
Yeah, I'm still a little bit concerned because one, that ESC is halfway in that styrofoam block. Two, you've got a black cowl, and in the summertime that thing's going to be hot. Plus the radiant off the engine as well. So I'd sure keep an eye on that ESC. I hope it's way overrated for the engine that you got on there.
yeah, we'll see. It's got I don't remember now. I think it's got a 40 amp ESC in there.
Right.
And surprisingly, it runs on. I'm going to be running it on 3S 2200 batteries. I got a crap load of those things, and so it's got a pretty small little motor on it, surprisingly. But it's not a huge airplane. I'm trying to remember what the wingspan is, but like, I don't know, 35 inches or something like that. But we'll see. I'm excited to fly it. And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say a 40 amp on that size of a plane, it should keep plenty cool. I can't imagine that's going to get very hot.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't looked to see what the maximum I can put on that. As far as I think, I don't remember how many cells it'll take. I'll have to look at that, but yeah, especially with a 3S, it shouldn't tap it at all. And then the other thing is, I was trying out back to transmitters. We're just going to make this a transmitter episode. I finally drug the Tactic TTX 850 out of the box, and decided I was going to use that to set up the Zero. I don't know what it is, but I like the Tactic radios with airplanes for some reason. Particularly, it started because I could do wireless buddy boxing with my son on the cheap, because they're not very expensive at all. And the 450 and the 650, they're okay. I mean, nothing fancy. They don't have a whole lot of programming, obviously, like my Taranis or even my Futaba that I use for the helis. But the 850, they surprised me there. I wasn't expecting that much of a jump up. I think they've really started to hit that real, I'll use air quotes, the real transmitter market. It sounds horrible. I'm not saying that the 400, 450, and 650 are not real, but they use AA batteries. It's just a different type of transmitter, right? But when you jump into LiPo-based transmitter and more configuration options, it just it changes things. And the 850, first thing that surprised me was the red backlight, which is cool. I don't know how well it's going to be as far as if visibility is going to be good or bad or not. But when I turned it on and it vibrated for the first time, I didn't even realize it had vibrating alerting. So that might be interesting. So I'm gonna see if, in lieu of hearing alerts, if the vibration makes a difference, because I never did install that in my Taranis, and I've been wondering if I wanted to or not. So this will give me a good opportunity to try that out. But it's got a multi-rotor mode and an airplane mode and a helicopter mode and gimbal control setup, and pretty much just seems to do everything you'd expect a new modern transmitter to do, but different price and not nearly as flexible as far as the receiver options. But for me, for airplane, fixed wing flying, I think they're just perfect. And all of them connect to each other wirelessly for training, so that helps.
Let me ask you on those Tactics radio. I was looking at the Fly Zone Beaver kit.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it comes with a Tactics receiver. Can I pull that out and put a Spectrum in? Will it work?
Yeah. So all of the Tactics I've bought with the SLT receiver already in them. It's just a receiver. It's got all the standard servo connections and all that. You pull out that one and then throw in whatever else you want. So no big deal.
Good.
So you still using the Taranis these days at all, or?
Oh yes. Yeah, and I still love it. So I'm the latest aircraft I put the Taranis on was my 250 quad, and it's kind of like what Dana was saying, right? I like that tinkering, programming, playing. So when I set up the 250, I gave a switch that turns on the beeper on the quad, the Find Me beeper. I have a switch that whenever I flip it, it tells me what the current battery voltage is. Out on a whim, I can just hit that switch and it'll tell me the voltage. And I love that stuff and all the custom functions and custom switches. So yeah, I really, matter of fact, I think here pretty soon I'm going to do a video actually going through setting up a multi-rotor with the Taranis, because it's been so long since I've played with it, so that'll encourage me to sit down and really just go through it. But I really do like that radio. I want to update it.
That's still one that's on my radar, simply because of the functionality at the price point is really hard to ignore.
Yeah, and so I on that 250, I bought a D4R2. I think it's D4R. I always forget which order the 4 and the R go. DR4 or D4R. Anyway, and it's just a simple 4-channel telemetry capable receiver, and I don't remember, $30 probably is what they cost. And I just basically hook that into my. I'm using the NAS 32 Acro flight controller, and I hooked it into there. The NAS will take positive and negative from the battery as a telemetry, as a battery voltage input, and then it will output through the board the telemetry, and I just fed that straight into the transmitter or straight into the receiver. And then I get, battery voltage at the Taranis, and it was really super easy. Didn't require anything other than the receiver and just adding in a couple of wire connection to the NAS 32, so no extra modules or anything. So that was really handy and lightweight and all that. They've come out with the Taranis Plus.
Correct.
With some updates, and I was following it really heavy like last year when they were still developing the Plus, about what the features were going to be and the new updates. And I know almost everything, I'm pretty sure everything that came out as updated hardware you can retrofit on the old one. Correct. I just quite frankly haven't done it. I haven't had time, but I've been looking at the updated switches and the vibration module. I don't even remember what else there was.
Yeah, I believe they upgraded. I guess the big complaint was some of the sliders were really cheesy.
Yeah.
Really loose, but on the new one, I've read that they're really nice now.
Sliders are a challenge for me because no matter where they're at, even I've got the Futaba 8FG, it's got sliders on the side in the same place. Taranis has them there. The Taranis ones do feel cheesy, kind of plasticky, loose. But it doesn't, on that and the Futaba, I always accidentally bump those when I'm handling the transmitter. I'm always hitting them. And because of that, I don't use them for anything because I'm just afraid I'm going to, muck it up. Right. And Dana, actually, when I was looking at your Jeti, I was noticing that the sliders on the side are sort of recessed a little bit. Do you use the sliders at all?
No, I do not use the sliders. And I'll be honest with you, they are recessed, but I haven't looked at it real close, but I don't know if they have an adjustment for like like a tension adjustment, but they're rather easy to move. Every time I pick up the transmitter, I move them.
Okay, so same thing then.
But they do make, I know they make a replacement tab that goes on here, so you can, it actually extends up further, so it actually makes them larger, if that's what you're after. I've never used them. My 8FG, I had them. The 14SG's got them. I think the only thing you might use them for, maybe if you're really, with planes, and I really haven't got into any of the planes yet, other than I've got an old plane that I built when I was a teenager that I'm converting over to electric right now. I just haven't finished that up yet. So.
Yeah. I was wondering. I've never used them for things like flaps or anything like that, but like I said, I'm just afraid to program them with anything because I'm always bumping them, right. And I'm glad it's not just me. I thought I was the only one that just couldn't figure out how to hold the transmitter without moving the sliders, but.
Yeah, I think the Plus also has a dual color display now. So you can
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I think they added red, or it's orange or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, so and then the other thing is the firmware, right? So I haven't updated firmware on the Taranis in a long time, probably a year as well. So I have no idea what type of updates have happened. However, it goes back to that whole kind of, it's a sort of a circular discussion, but I haven't updated the firmware because I haven't felt like I'm missing anything in my current setup. I mean, I can do everything I want to do. I don't feel like I'm like, oh, if it could only do this one thing, please put out a firmware to fix this. I haven't been there yet. The one thing I would like to see, and I should research. I probably won't do it here because I'll go into Google land and you guys will just have to carry on without me. But I would like to know if they have implemented the notes feature. I know previously they were talking about in the firmware update last year they were working on implementing some sort of a notes screen for a model so that you could jot down things like your switch and all the assignments, channel assignments per aircraft, and that way whenever you load up that model you can get a quick glance at what's going on, because it's a little bit different for everything. So if that has been implemented, that alone would make it worth updating my firmware. But outside of that, I haven't really felt like it.
I agree. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and he was asking me how I set up one of my models, and I've got like, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 models, and I'm like, I don't remember what I did or how I set that up or why I did what I did. I need to start taking notes because I go back in there and go, why did I do that?
Yeah. I thought about doing old school, just doing a notebook, and putting it in the transmitter case. It's just got the model and then all the switches and assignments, and then I could just flip it open, take a quick look at it, and then I'll go fly. But the way it is now, everything is set up differently depending on what the capabilities and features of the aircraft are. I mean, I try and do, I have a throttle hold switch. It's the same place whether I'm flying a multi-rotor, an airplane, or a helicopter. I use throttle hold just the same on an airplane because and I don't know why they don't put throttle hold by default on plane models.
I agree.
I've bumped the throttle. My DX6i, great example. When I had that, this is one of the reasons I decided to move to the Taranis back when I had the DX6i. Was no way to do a throttle hold. And just walking to go set the thing out, I bumped the throttle and fire the motor up, and it's like it just doesn't make sense why you wouldn't want that on everything.
Right.
So everything's got that in the regardless of which model it is. But outside of that, it's like, well, Some of them I have with dual rates set up, one switch to run them all. Some of them they're, dual rates on the aileron separate, from the elevator. And, I spend the first 20 minutes dragging the thing out and just, moving switches to see what changes. I hold the stick at full deflection and start wiggling all the sticks until I figure out which one changes the throws. And I'm like, okay, there's dual rates. So I think the note feature would be cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at the Taranis is I went out to OpenTX to look at firmware, and one of the things I saw is they warn you that if you have a Taranis, not to use their firmware, to go to Taranis, FreeSky's website, and get the firmware from them instead of downloading firmware from OpenTX. Have you read into that?
No, only. I mean, I'm familiar with the concept of the fact that they've got the public stable release, and then they've got the unstable development release. But I thought both of them were available on OpenTX.org. So yeah, I have not heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, the last time I was.
That?
I have to go back and find it. But I was just out there looking at firmware because I was looking for the companion software just to play with it. And they had a note on their site that said, hey, if you have a Taranis, we recommend you not download the software here, but go to FreeSky and get your firmware directly from them.
Okay, here you go. Interesting. So this says I'm on OpenTX, open-tx.org for those of you listening, downloads, and it says for Taranis users, please note that your radio has been delivered with a firmware that is customized and exclusive to FreeSky and is not part of the OpenTX team's offerings and development cycle. It is supposed to be used on its own exclusively on the radio, no companion, and is supported directly by FreeSky, which means that should something not work or any feature request should be expressed directly to them. It is stable and suitable for most usage cases and is the preferred version that most Taranis owners should likely be using. Now, second paragraph, switching to the OpenTX team's releases and using tools like Companion should be considered an advanced usage scenario that will require some computer knowledge, a bunch of reading to find out about the differences, and may cause headaches if things don't go as expected. Be sure to read the paragraph, blah, 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 blah. So what that tells me is, hey, for just normal people, don't start playing with this stuff. But if you know what you're getting into and you're willing to tinker and reload firmware and play with settings, so I think that's just their disclaimer, so that people don't buy a Taranis, immediately change the firmware and then get screwed.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So I was like, yeah, because I mean the version I'm using now, which is an old version, still a 1.x, I think, 1. something, I got from OpenTX.org. So
okay.
Yeah, I'll have to try out. I need to look while I'm on here. Where's the release notes? That's what I need to know. Control F, notes. Aha! OpenTX 2.0.0 was the first major release, and it says ability to read text files from the SD card. A file with the name of a model will be linked to it and easily accessible as model notes. Can be displayed automatically at model load for use as a checklist. Taranis only. So I am so going to be putting version 2.0 on my Taranis here pretty soon. Yeah, that's awesome. Now you got me stuck reading release notes. I'm going to stop. Close that window. Otherwise, I'll be doing it right now. Cool. Yeah, so, lots of great transmitter discussion. I really like playing with transmitters, and I guess it's not surprising because that's the part that we as humans interact with. That's our interface to the model. So I guess it's not surprising that becomes a very important part. But back to basically we've been talking about Taranis because you asked if I like it and still use it, and I still have no regrets. Best $175 I've ever spent. And because it was $175, I'm not afraid to crack it open and do some hardware mods on it. I've soldered some capacitors and resistors to play with audio buzzing, and that stuff doesn't bother me on a sub $200 transmitter. I mean, let's be real, but $700 transmitter, a $1,500 transmitter, you wouldn't catch me kind of tinkering around like that. I just send it back if it had a problem. But yeah, it's been great.
One of the reviews I recently watched was interesting because the reviewers, his main, aside from he said it just all around he loved it. It was the best, and he said he used them all, and it's still his go-to favorite radio. He said one of the things that he really likes about it is the fact that he could take it out of his car, and he doesn't care if he drops it on the asphalt because it's a $200 radio. He says, if I drop a $700 radio, that's going to really ruin my day. But he said, if I run over a $200 radio, it's not the end of the world. I can easily replace that. So I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. It's it is what it is. I don't know. The funny thing is, when I'm flying it, it doesn't feel like. So I have a Futaba 8FG. It's no surprise. You know, I run the Futaba on my 700 and 550. The bigger helis. And there's something in me that makes me feel good. I really like the Futaba. I like the feel of the radio. I like the creativity. Freedom that the Taranis gives me, which is why I really like the Taranis for multi-rotors, because that's usually where I'm doing these really weird, if then, if this then, kind of statements. But when I'm flying them, and quite frankly, even we'll bring the tactics into the picture, which is what I'm using for the fixed wing stuff. When I'm actually just flying, I don't know what radio I have in my hand. I really couldn't tell you. I mean, if you blindfold did a Pepsi Coca-Cola taste test, blindfolded me, gave me a radio with sticks. Assuming I can fly blindfolded. But this is where the analogy breaks down. But if I didn't know what radio I had in my hands, as long as I'm flying something, I don't know that I care. Right. They're all close. Now, Dana, you probably can tell a big difference because your radio is a little bit different class than, there's probably a noticeable difference between the Jeti and everything else as far as feel.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a big difference in feel. Compared to, I mean, even the $3,000 flagship Futaba, the plastic Futaba, which I can't get over the price point on that radio. Can't actually even understand how people buy them at that price. But there's definitely
nobody buys them. It's just sponsored people that fly them.
You know what? And that's what I wonder. I mean, they must get such a discount on these things or something to be sponsored, or I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But yeah, I mean, so I guess you kind of mentioned it, the plastic, Futaba. But when I think about it, I look at my whether it's the Tactic or the Free Sky or the Futaba, or even my Great Plains sim controller, which is Futaba-ish. They're all plastic bodied. and the switches are fundamentally in similar places. You know, there's a little bit of difference here and there, but they're all kind of built the same. You know, they're same shape, same plastic feel to them. I would imagine it would be much different if the shape were different or the material was different.
Yeah, you know, last year I broke the gear switch on my DX8, and I wanted to replace it. So I go and look up how much that switch is going to cost me, and Horizon Hobby wants $15 for that switch. And it's just a real basic switch. So I went down to Radio Shack and just bought a $2 switch and stuck it in there, although it didn't have the long paddle on it. It was one of the switches with the longer paddles on it. But I thought, you know, I'm not paying $15 for a switch. That's just ridiculous. So I lived with it for a few months, and then it was really starting to bug me. So I started looking into it more, and I noticed that the same type of switch is used on a Taranis. And I thought, well, and Taranis, I forgot. I think I ordered from Aloft Hobbies, maybe. They only wanted like
that's one of the premier Taranis dealers or Free Sky dealers.
They only wanted like $4 for the switch, so I thought, well, that's very reasonable. So I order it, stick it in there. I can't tell the difference between that switch and any other switch on my DX8. Now, with that being said, I've read review after review after review of people saying, I can't believe how bad these switches are on this Taranis compared to my Spectrum. What are you talking about? I just bought one, and I can't tell the difference. It's the exact same switch as far as I could tell in any way, shape, or form. So it boggles my mind that how people can complain that, oh, the Taranis, man, those switches are garbage. I love my Spectrum. That thing, my DX8 the switches on that are solid. Like, it's the same switch. It's just a switch.
Yeah, and then there's this part that says, who cares? It's a very simple function, right? It's a switch. It has 2 positions or 3 positions, and it moves between positions. I will say so. With that said, light switches on the wall in my house. There are some switches I cannot stand, and some I like, and it has to do with how mechanically. I don't know. Some of them are kind of smooth, and some of them are like industrial, commercial, like clunk, clunk. And I can tell you exactly where in the house the switches have been replaced. So I guess I can kind of relate to that to some degree, but these little switches on the transmitter, I could care less as long as they move when I tell it to move and stay where I tell it to stay, and they don't unscrew and get wobbly or anything like that. Now gimbals, that's a whole nother story, right? Like, and Dana, I keep coming back to you because you've got the transmitter to have, right? With Hall effect sensor gimbals, and I can imagine things like that you will feel a little bit more readily, or different spring mechanisms and things like that. How they center or not, but yeah, switches,
The fact that you guys bring up switches, that's probably one little complaint, because actually for me, I noticed that a lot in a transmitter. At least I could tell a difference. That was a big difference between my 14SG and the Jeti, and I will hand it to Futaba. Their switches are better, at least in my opinion. They break. It's like a trigger on a gun, right? How you describe how a trigger breaks. It's the same thing with the switch. How the switch actually. The Futabas are they feel more crisp. Okay, which to me translates to when you're not looking at your transmitter and you're actually just flipping switches, right? Does it feel mushy, or is it a nice crisp break on the switch? And that's what for me, I noticed that kind of thing. That was probably one of the first things I noticed when I took the Jeti out of the box, started playing with it, and I said, yeah, I mean they work. They're probably, to to somebody that hasn't handled, the 14SG, I think I've had for maybe a year now, and maybe a little over a year. Time flies. I got used to that. Okay, so I will say that's one thing I'll hand to Futaba.
Yeah, I agree. I prefer, a switch that's got a nice crisp break. And that's exactly how that Taranis switch I bought's no different than any other switch on my DX8. It's just really crisp snap. When it goes, and you know it.
Right.
It doesn't, it doesn't float there in the center. When it goes, it goes. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the transmitter. I may end up doing nothing.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a significant investment, and it's not only investment in the transmitter. It's an investment in all of your receivers and telemetry equipment. And I mean, I've been trying to figure out how to standardize. Thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll standardize all my helis onto Futaba. Well, that means my my 500, my 450. I'll have to buy Futaba receivers for, and then take off the FreeSky stuff that I have on there now. And then I think, well, then what am I going to do with my 130 and my MCPX that has, there's nothing I can do with that. That's got the Spectrum stuff on it. So I fly that in a module in my Taranis. So then I'm like, well, I'm still flying my Taranis for some helicopters and not others. So, I mean, right now I'm flying Taranis on my 450, my 500 and below, and then 550 and above is Futaba, and then, the multi-rotors are all Taranis. It's like, it just the thought of trying to convert to one hurts my head slightly. So I could imagine that decision. Probably. Plus, how do you know the Grokner isn't the one for you until you go try it? It's like it's always, what about this one that I haven't used yet?
Exactly. And then there's a devil on my other shoulder who says, dude, learn how to fly what you have well. And then when you get that figured out, then go buy something new.
I don't know if that's the devil. I think that's the angel on your shoulder.
Yeah. What's the fun in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm close to being there. I wanted to buy a new heli for my son, and then he goes in and out of interest, and to the point that I get hesitant to spend any more money on stuff with him until he comes back around, and maybe this summer he'll start getting interested again. We'll go to IRCHA again, and he'll get all fired up again, and then we'll go back into it. But at any rate, I was thinking I really kind of wanted to buy one of the newer smaller helis to put the Spirit on, like a Chase 360 or a Goblin 380 or what's the other one? The X3 I was thinking about from Gaui. I mean, there's all these great choices, and then I'm like, do I really need another helicopter, or can I just take one of the ones I already have hanging on the wall and change it out? But I really do want to try something different. I've pretty much realized that the more model types you can get your hands on, the more fun the experience is. It wouldn't be fun for me to keep building like every version of an Align helicopter, because fundamentally hardware based, they're all kind of the same. They're just bigger. But the difference between building an Align and the Thunder Tiger, and I want to try something else. I've kind of been stuck in that Taro/Align and then Thunder Tiger. I really want to see what's it like to build a Goblin or a Gaui or or a Chase or something. But I don't know. I'm trying not to buy anything new right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
We'll see
It's
how that
interesting.
goes.
You need that new Zoxis.
What's that?
You need that new Zoxis.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about that. Is that how you say it? Did you figure that out, or did you just make that up?
I just made it up.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. I still want to talk about that. What was your last thought, Dave?
I was just going to say, I read in the forums, and there are guys that actually, in the wintertime, they buy something new, they work on it, and they build it, and they fly it all summer, all year long. And that's all that they do. And then winter comes, they buy something new. But, then I guess they're the rest of us who buy something new, fly it a couple times, and buy something new. Fly it once, buy something new.
Yeah, well, yeah, no lie. I mean, that's exactly right. I'm going speechless because it's so dead on. But I've got enough aircraft that I'll fly them a couple times, and then I'm moving on to the next project. And it's not like I'll never go back to them, but I'm too distracted. Whereas the people that can just buy one, and then just work on that and fly it and work on it and fly it, I kind of envy that to some degree.
Yeah, there was a guy I met here. I haven't seen him around in a while, but what he would do is he would build a heli, in the winter and fly it. And if he crashed it, he was done. That was it for the year. Because it'd take him a year to save up the money to buy the parts to rebuild it. But next summer he'd be out there again with that thing, and he was perfectly okay with that. And I don't know that I could do that, but there are those people that do.
Well, I'll tell you. So between you and me and the internet, I'm still paying on the credit card for my 700 purchase. So there's no wonder I haven't flown it very much because I'm still paying on it. And now, to be fair, I have put other things on that credit card, so I think by now I would have had it paid off if I could stop buying other things. But I bought those Fat Shark goggles that doesn't help. But I have a hobby credit card that I've been kind of using and trying to monitor so that I don't get out of control. And it is. I mean, you spend. I think Dana, you called it earlier. You spend $2,500, $3,000 when it's all said and done between parts and the kit, and it's a lot of money. It's a huge investment, and I'm not good at saving up cash and then buying when I've got the money. I buy it and then spend the next year trying to pay it back.
Right.
Yep.
So. Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, I'm really this year. My goal is to get my private pilot's license, my full-scale pilot's license.
Nice.
And I think I can pull that off. And it's going to be really hard, and I'm going to have to sacrifice some of my hobby spending to go to that because it's going to be expensive. But I'm not seriously. Well, I'm seriously looking at it. I'm not taking action right now. I think I'm going to wait until later on, like mid to end of February, before I really start looking at taking action, because this time of year, it's not a good time of year to start trying to do flight training because the weather's horrible. But I'm going to try it, and I'm going to do my best to try and get my license this year. So that's going to take some significant money and time investment as well, as if I don't have enough of that already gone. But anyway, so one other thing I wanted to talk about for sure, and Casper brought it up, but I don't even know where I stumbled across this, but I just stumbled across it recently and had no idea that yet there was another helicopter manufacturer out there, and I don't even know how to say it. I'll spell it first, and everybody's, you guys can all laugh at me because I don't know how to say it, but SOXOS. Exos. I have no idea how to say that. From Swiss RC Helicopters, I think heli-professional.com. So I saw this because I think I ran across a video with Tarek flying one. I guess he's their spokesman to some degree, and they've got a what is it, a 600, 700, and an 800, and this thing looks amazing, and I have no idea how I didn't realize this existed until just recently, and maybe it's only existed for a short time. I can tell you there are no U.S. distributors for it yet, so that could be, issue number one. It looks like it's available in a few European countries, and including Switzerland, where it comes from. But the design looks really interesting, and I guess I bring it up to see if anybody knows anything about it, has seen it, has any scoop on it. Dave, have you seen this before, this helicopter?
No, how do you spell that again?
It's SOXOS. And I'll admit I haven't done any research on it at all other than looking at their website. They have some interesting features. The frame design looks really unique. They talk about a vibration isolated tail. They've got an interesting little, I don't know if it's an electronics box or some sort of a closable compartment on the front, which looks to me like it's for electronics. The gear drivetrain assembly looks really interesting. It's got several stage of drive, I guess it looks like. I've never seen it before, and I thought, how the hell did I not know this was out there?
No, it could be it's very limited, or very expensive, or all of the above.
Yeah, I didn't look at. I don't even know what it costs yet. I'm afraid to look.
I didn't see a price tag on the one page there. I thought it was interesting. It had a solid aluminum frame, a fully dampened tail rotor housing, special servo horns where you can adjust it independent of the servo spline itself. The electronics cabinet that you talked about. The tail linkage uses a torque tube type thing and uses a rotary motion to adjust the pitch slider rather than just pushing a rod back and forth. So there's a lot of unique aspects to that model.
Yeah. So the tail is like a direct drive sort of a thing, straight off the servo. Is that how's that working?
I just see the end where the tail is. I don't see the.
Yeah. How does it connect to the servo? Where's a picture of the? So the tail servo, the output shaft points. Okay, yeah, the output shaft of the servo points in the direction of the tail. So unlike most helicopters where it's perpendicular to the tail, the output shaft is parallel to the tail boom, and it looks like it's just a direct drive that instead of running a 90-degree linkage to a rod with another 90-degree to get to the tail, it looks like it's doing a like the tail output shaft turning itself down the other end of that is actually turning the pitch slider somehow.
Kind of a cam motion where the torque tube runs the connector rod to the slider.
Right.
And so it twists it and just slides it back and forth.
Now the servo horns, I like that design. Although I'm happy to admit I have that on my Thunder Tiger E700, and I really like basically the infinitely adjustable servo horns. You just have a collar that you tighten instead of having to just deal with the splines, and I really like that. I wish all of my helis had that, because sub-trim is a non-issue anymore. You don't have to set any sub-trim because you can infinitely adjust the servo horn. So that is a cool feature, and I would like to see every single helicopter manufacturer and every servo manufacturer just start moving to those as a standard.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, the cabinet. There's enough space in the cabinet to hold the receiver battery, receiver, and Flybarless system. Which, you know, it's just a hidey hole for your wires and crap, but it does make a clean build.
What if it makes it easier to wire?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it would just make it easier to stuff everything away so you don't have to see it.
Yeah.
But the multi-stage gear assembly looks pretty cool too. And that's one of the things, to be honest with you, that fascinates me with like the Goblin is how the drivetrain is different than just a traditional, you know, single main gear and auto rotation gear sort of a setup. I like the staged multi-stage gearing design, and this one seems to have. I'm looking. It's got the pinion, and then it goes to another gear, which has another gear stacked on top to it, which goes to the main gear, and then down below it's got the tail drive gear. Just really interesting design. And of course, Tarek can fly it like it's, you know, like it's Tarek flying it. So,
Yeah.
of course, he could probably take a lead balloon and fly it like it's amazing. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up. So, if anybody knows anything more about this, you know, feel free to let me know if there's something really cool that I should know about it. But right now, it appears that it's available in Switzerland, Germany and Austria, Scandinavia, and that is it. So,
yeah, it looks expensive.
It does look expensive, but you haven't seen a price yet, huh?
No. I mean, I don't know. This kind of goes in another direction, but one thing when we were talking about radios and stuff, the Europeans, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, I guess the Czech Republic. To me, it seems like they take RC a lot more seriously over there than we do here. And I don't know if that's a fair statement or not, but you know, when you look at the products that come out of there, like, you know, the Jeti duplex radio, the Grafner stuff. You know, I think there was another company that it's a German radio that they were looking at trying to import here. I think it's called Wetronic. You know, they're kind of in a different playing field, right? You know, and I think the same thing goes for their models. That you know, it almost seems like they've got some really neat, more, I guess what we would call boutique style, style helicopters. You know, where it seems like most of the stuff that's flooded our market is the, you know, high volume, you know, Chinese built stuff, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah, and then you have these things like the Velos, right? Velos 880. That's I forget where they're out of. Rome. Are they out of Rome? Of course, that never came to be.
Right.
I haven't heard anything about those guys. You know, I saw the helicopter. I interviewed the developers at IRCHA and never saw anything else out of it. So I don't know if they gave up or had some problems, or I just don't even know.
Yeah, I just think, you know, something like that, the level of complexity, it's definitely a niche product, you know. To say, okay, yeah, we built this helicopter that's, you know, it's got 2 elaborate transmissions and 2 of every, you know, the most expensive things, you know, that you can buy, and, you know, quite honestly, I think anybody that's in, you know, in the hobby business, you either build things because you want to, and the sky's the limit on what you know, what you want to do, because it's the, you know, it's the whole journey, right? You know, it's the, you know, And a lot of us, like you said before, it's all about the journey. You know, buying a helicopter, building it, you fly it a little bit, you get bored, you go and do it all over again, right?
Right.
I think the same thing goes for people that you know, they're either developers or designers that build these things. Just like guys that build hot rods, right? You know, you build the next, you know, greatest hot rod or whatever that everybody wants, and you know, but reality is if you're looking at building something and trying to market it, that's a whole other thing, right? So, and I don't know how you could market that type of helicopter and actually ever expect to really make a lot of sales on something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It is cool, though. Yeah, if somebody knows how much this thing's cost, that's what I'd love to hear. You can email me, cpo@everythingcpo.com. If you know how much these things cost, that would be awesome, because that's one of the things I'm like, even if I can't get it, I'm curious, you know, is it, I would imagine kit price on that is probably, let's make a guess. Let's see, how much is a Goblin 700? Anybody know that?
No, about 900, 800, 900 bucks.
So let's say I'm guessing $2,000 US for a 700 kit for this. What do you think?
Let's see.
And then we'll figure out if I'm right. And then, I mean, I don't think $2,000 is that far out, because a lot of you look at a lot of the speed helis, the higher end speed helis. I just names escape me right now, but they're easily $2,000 for a speed heli kit.
Would you be surprised if it was under 1,000?
Would I? I would be really surprised if it's under 1,000.
Well, I'll tell you what I did, and I don't know how close this is. I went to the distributor list there, and then clicked on the Swedish site and looked up the model, and the model's listed as 7,995 krona. Then I went to the Google thing to figure out what the krona was in US dollars, and it came up 995.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know.
Which one did you click on? Because I hit a couple of those, and
see where it says RC Sweden AB under distributor Scandinavia?
Our distributors,
Dealers and distributors.
Yep.
And then click on the link that's on the far right column.
Yep. So I tried a few of those. I didn't try the Sweden one, and a lot of the others didn't even look like real heli shops.
Yeah, the German one didn't get anywhere. So from that site, I went and clicked on helicopters, and it's got the 600, the 700, and the 800. And it's got the prices.
I'll be darned.
But
Yep, there it is. Soxos.
You're in Swedish kronen, supposedly, and then I did the computation, and it's supposed to be for that 700 to be less than 1,000. $987.54. Yeah, they may have a tax on that or something. I don't know. Plus import and whatnot.
Interesting.
So you could be the first on your block.
Yeah. Now, if it really is $1,000 US, that's pretty surprising. I mean, that's to be fair, that's still a lot of money.
Yeah, but you know, the going price for a 700 kit, I don't think you can get a Goblin 700 for that much.
I don't think so. That's why it would surprise me a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
It may be fairly bare bones. I don't know if it comes with blades or if you have to, you know.
Yeah, I doubt it comes with anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's probably about time to start wrapping up. What else? Any last minute thoughts?
I got one question for you. I sent you that question about 4 ESC setups, and I got your response. My question is then, if you use one full set on one and use all the data on the others, what do you do with the excess wires on those other ESCs?
Okay.
You just take them up? Or?
Stand by, because I'll do a visual on this. Hang on. All right. So, oh, maybe you can't see because
It's buried.
yeah, I thought it was going to be easier to see, but if I can get it in there. So, I don't know if you can see that or not, but so I have one receiver cable, or the servo cable out of the ESC number 1
Right.
is normal, and then all 3 of the signal wires from ESCs 2, 3, and 4 are combined into one plug.
Okay.
So,
What
yeah,
what'd you do with the power wires that came off the other 3 ESCs?
so the power wire and the ground wire I just didn't use. I just cut them.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Did you cut them? Did you tie them off? Did you put them all
I think
together, twist them, or?
I cut them, and then I shrink tubed over the ends to keep them from shorting on anything.
Okay.
Independently, but yeah, I cut them. I didn't desolder them because I didn't want to go through that much trouble, but I cut them really short, and then just made sure the ends wouldn't touch anything. So ESC number 1 has power, signal, and ground the way it normally would, and it's plugged up and down.
Yeah, vertically.
So that it hits all, the ground, the power, and the signal. And then the other 3 are plugged in just along the top. Does that make sense?
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so I just put them all in the same plug, and that way, because I thought about, you could remove the power and ground and then just plug 3, servo wires in, but then that's just all those extra plugs that get in the way. So,
okay.
And the thought being is that, number 1, you don't need the power, because once the rail's powered, you're good to go. And number 2, you probably don't want the grounds because you don't want to create a ground loop situation. So just running the signal wires is the safest way to go.
Right. Right.
And I think, and I feel bad because I have a video on building the top half of this. I've done the one of the bottom half, and the video that shows that stuff, I need to edit it. Obviously I've filmed it because I'm already built, but I need to edit it, and that's on my to-do list. So hopefully I'll get that out soon. You guys saw my guitar pick holder for my antenna.
Yeah, pretty good.
Works really slick. And this is the one that took the tumble, 12. I think we decided 12 tumbles or 11, depending on your perspective. And that was with this guitar pick mount, and it stood the test of time.
Huh.
Nice.
So,
hey Chris, is that basically like the Emax 250 frame?
They're all very similar. This is Emax motors and ESCs, but the frame is the drone frames, DRQ 250. But they're all very similar. I think the Emax is nearly identical.
Yeah, I'm building the Emax, and it's very same frame.
Okay.
Does it have the belt?
The belt?
Yeah. How does your dirty and clean sections connect?
It's got an aluminum spacer and a screw goes down through.
Okay. Does it have, like, I don't know if you can see these little shock absorbers?
Yeah.
Does it have anything like that?
Mine's aluminum. It doesn't use a shock except for the camera stage on top.
You know you're flying your quad right when your props have mud all over them. That's it's holding up well though. It still runs like a champ, and I abuse the heck out of it. Not lately because it's been too cold, but anyway.
So what camera did you put on that? The ready-made RC camera?
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah. Do you have any specs for that camera, or?
It is the. Trying to look. Hold on. Model number RMRC 420N.
Okay.
Yeah, 420N. So, and it's been working really well. Handles, bright light. Does okay in low light. It does say somewhere on there. It says like low light, or what is it called? Oh, it's day/night CCD camera, but I don't know why they say night, because it's not like it has night vision or anything.
All right.
But it works pretty well in low light conditions. I have it tucked here behind that protective, which I think probably was a good idea given the way I fly it. But it comes with the little swivel stand. Whoops, there you are, right there. And so I can tilt it just where I want it.
Right.
But yeah, it's been good. I've got no complaints.
Yeah, I think that's the next thing on my list is I want to build a 250 quad. I've picked up some of the FPV stuff. I actually put the FPV stuff on. I've got the keychain cam, the 808, and put that on. I think it's a 1/10 scale electric buggy, and started playing with that, just playing FPV. So, and hook it up to. We got a small 19-inch LCD TV, and hook it up to that, and kind of got a taste of FPV with it. But I need to get a better camera because my keychain camera's been through one too many crashes, so the camera's going out on it, I think.
Yeah, so this one is made. It's ready-made RC model, but it's basically a Sony camera.
Right.
And it's got an output that plugs directly into the. I'm running an Immersion RC video transmitter, and because it's a 12-volt camera. It's powered straight off the VTX, which is a nice bonus because I was before using the 808 number 16 cam in my Bixler, but it's a 5-volt power, so you've got to figure out how to get it tapped down from 12 volt to 5 volts because either the VTX is pushing out 12 volts, or your battery probably is pushing out 12 volts if you're running a 3S. So that became kind of a pain because then I ended up using just another UBEC to power the camera. Although battery power, obviously you can just run it off a battery, but I didn't feel comfortable just trying to run battery from the 808 cam by itself. But anyway. All right, guys. Well, it's 11 o'clock my time, which means it's my bedtime. So Appreciate the chat. It's good catching up with you guys. And actually, if you're going to believe this, we almost exclusively talked about stuff that was heli relevant this entire time, other than the last 10 minutes. So I think that's a first in a long time. Usually it starts out as a quad discussion and stays that way for most of the Hangout. So I think we did good keeping it on focus. We'll refer to this as the transmitter episode, where we drooled over Dana's Jeti for most of the Hangout. But
yeah.
Anyway, appreciate it, guys, and we'll do this again in a couple weeks. In the meantime, go out and buy your Soxos, or however the hell you say that. Let me know how much it cost in U.S. dollars, and tell me how awesome it is, because I'm not going to buy any new helicopters anytime soon.
Okay.
All right.
All right, guys. You guys have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one.